This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose, the podcast about Red Dwarf, here on the We Made This podcast network. My name is Mark Adams and I am your host for this 5th of 5 episodes this week in November on the Smegazines. But I'm not on my own. I'm with the two idiots that have agreed to do so many Smegazine episodes.
All
Hello,
of them.
Colin.
Hello.
Hello, Carl.
Hello.
Yeah, this is the end of our run for 2023. We'll do another one in 2024, and then we're done. Because there's only 4 more after this issue. We're looking at Volume 2, Issue 5. And on the cover, there is a picture of Dwayne Dibley, and it says, Dwayne Dibley is the man from Uncool, which is obviously a pun. I like puns. It is punny. And then there's stuff about Hattie Hayridge, who meets Elvis. There's a lot of Elvis in this issue.
There is. They didn't know he was a bad man yet.
To be fair, he hadn't nonced, officially at least, at this point.
Okay.
Because he
fair enough.
nonced in 2002.
Right.
I love how nonce has become a verb in recent years.
Yeah. But yeah, fuck Clayton Mark, noncy bastard, went to prison for noncing. But they didn't know he was going to nonce in the future in 1993.
They fucking love him in this issue. He gets mentioned so much.
Yes, he does. Fucking cunt.
There's also another one.
Yeah, and the picture is cool. Well, it's not actually. It's really uncool. But it's, I like the front cover. I think if you're not going to have some pretty artwork, it's a good enough picture, really.
Yeah. It's all right.
Then we've got the Smegatorial. Danny John Jules is in the studio and there's going to be an article on it. There's a definitive countdown and Series 6 is coming in the next month and everyone's excited about that. And there's a massive spoiler about Dwayne Dibley returning to TV.
There is. Yeah.
The countdown towards Series 6 broadcasting has started to feel a bit like a countdown towards the magazine ending.
I don't think they knew that, though.
No, it's weird, but it does feel like this is what's happening.
I find it peculiar, though, that surely it should have lasted, with the hype of Series 6, it should have lasted maybe 6 months after that at least.
Potentially.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why it ended. I don't know whether we find out in the last issue, whether it was just poor sales.
Isn't that the only reason why a magazine ends? Poor sales.
Usually, isn't it? Yeah. Sometimes it's the company that was running it closes down.
But we know it's not, because it's the people what owns 2000 AD. Oh, actually,
Yeah.
it's not. It's a different company. Rebellion owns 2000 AD now.
Yeah, I was going to say they did at that time. When we get on to the next one, I'll try and do some research and find that out. The other bit on this Smegatorial page that I noticed, it's got and the thanks list that's always there. It's got Rob Grant, Doug Naylor, Hattie Hayridge, Craig Charles, all that lot. And then it says, and everyone at Stoke Mandeville Hospital, and no, this has nothing whatsoever to do with Jimmy Savile.
Oh, dear.
Did they know?
I think a lot of people knew.
Yeah.
That's 2 nonces in this issue now.
It's not the only Jim will fix it reference in this either.
To be fair to the Jingle Nonce OBE, as he's always called by Chart Music Podcast,
Brilliant.
Stoke Mandeville Hospital, that's not where he did his noncery. That's where he did his necrophilia.
Oh, that makes it okay, then?
Now he says it, yeah. It's...
He'd got a key to the morgue.
I mean, we've all got keys to morgues.
I'd forgotten he necrophiled as well as nonced.
See, I haven't, because the first thing I heard about that one was on an episode of This Morning with Richard Not Judy. There was an episode where Richard Herring was dressed up as Jimmy Savile, and as the cameras were just shutting off at the end, you can just hear him in the background saying, "Save the dead ones for me." And that was years before.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. So this has taken a dark turn already. Shall we shift gear urgently to the Dwayne Dibley cartoon?
There is a Dwayne Dibley cartoon.
Part 6.
It is, and it's the final part, and it actually gets a little bit of attention rather than 2 shitty little pages this time. Classic Nigel Kitching art, which obviously is magnificent. And I really like the expansion on his amnesia, which was only really vaguely touched on in Back to Reality. But it's actually very clever in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he was an actual operative for the Ministry of Alteration, and he had enough and quit.
Yeah.
So they altered him. So fucking dark.
This is part 6. This has been going on for 6 months, this story. And some of them have been way too short, which has been really annoying. But it's like, yeah, we're finally getting a conclusion. And it ends on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that cliffhanger's a Nick Berry CD. Of all the cliffhangers. I wasn't expecting Nick Berry.
See, this is something that's bothered me for years, is where is Nick Berry? What's he doing?
Where is Nick buried, perhaps?
No, he's still alive.
Okay.
Because when EastEnders killed off Pat, there was a big to-do that he turns up in a post-credit scene on an episode of EastEnders. He turns up and sort of has one line and then walks away.
Is it where he gets, like, Phil Mitchell to join the Avengers Initiative?
Very like that, yeah. But the thing is, he's still quite handsome. He's got the sort of grey, sort of switchback hair, but, he could walk onto a Heartbeat reboot, like, tomorrow. But I never hear of him doing anything. So it's like, where is Nick Berry? How is he making money? The single of Heartbeat can't have that good royalties to it.
To my knowledge, he's not doing, like, the gay pride scene or anything like that.
No.
You know, like, washed-up 80s and 90s people do that. I've seen Hazeldean so many times at Pride. He's not doing that.
I can't imagine a sort of a large group of LGBTQ plus people dancing along to Heartbeat. It's not really a bopper, is it?
True.
Unless he's reinvented himself as a dance DJ like a lot of those guys do. Oomph, 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 oomph. Why do you miss when my baby kisses?
You can't see it because this is an audio medium, but Carl just did Big Fish, Little Fish cardboard box.
Without thinking about it, I went straight to Big Fish, Little Fish cardboard box.
I do wonder if we've got any of our international listeners left.
Yeah.
That was a very UK-centric tangent.
It was. It wasn't a tangent. They brought up Nick Berry by making him
a punchline.
There is a fun gag in this that I enjoyed, and I remember laughing at it then, which is that the voter colonel has got the user-friendly mode on his computer. So when he asks for something, the computer says, "You got it, baby." And he switches it off, which means he had to have switched it on at some point.
Yeah.
It is an utterly peculiar ending, but it has been kind of peculiar throughout the whole thing, so I'm not mad.
No,
it's been a good little strip, and when you've got it all together and read it all in one go, it's great, because the problems were that it was chopped up into too many little bits. So if you read it all collected together, it's really, really good.
Yeah. I like the reveal that the cat vision that he's been seeing all the way through is actually just a side effect to the video game.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it's sort of saying, like, he's not the cat. He was somebody else. And also the thing of he was supposed to be in there for 9 years, but everyone was so crap at Back to Reality that they came out after 4.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Next up is news from the Dwarf, and there's lots of stuff here. There's lots of stuff about Tongue-Tied that didn't happen. The first series is finally on VHS, and it's sold well, but there was no Woolies freebie, Colin.
There isn't, no. So we were wondering about it yesterday, and they didn't get it sorted in time.
No Woolies freebie. There's a new Red Dwarf book coming out, and the details are all inaccurate. And there's lots of stuff happening around Season 6's launch. There's a Craig Charles book, some signings, an auction, and there's some enamel badges. Did they exist?
Yeah. I think the Craig Charles book is what eventually became known as the log.
That's what it sounds like the log. So, yeah, that's what I was wondering if it was.
But it does strike me that what you were saying yesterday about this geezer who makes shit up.
No, this is Jane Killick, so this is legit.
Right. So she's just been told a load of poppycock then, hasn't she?
Well, that was the information that was given to her, yeah. It's subject to change, and did.
The thing that kind of made me go, ooh, during this, the description of Craig Charles's book, was it details embarrassing stories, urban myths, and the mysteries of the universe with Craig's typical streetwise humour, which I don't know why, but that sort of hit me in the same way when you hear that something in the sort of 90s was urban.
Yes.
Just that undercurrent of black. We mean black.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like... it's like streetwise humour.
Yeah.
It really feels like the magazine is trying to help Hattie Hayridge because she's not in Series 6.
Yes. Yeah, there's definitely lots of chucking things her way and mentioning stuff as much as possible. The bit I had to pick up on will become obvious in a minute. There is a tiny section right at the end where it says briefly, and it mentions an extract of the Red Dwarf talking book will appear on a free cassette with October's Select magazine along with other comedy extracts. So that was Planet of the Japes, which was a free cover mount tape with Select magazine. The Red Dwarf section on there was Crichton and the Skeletons on Nova 5.
Amazing.
And the other tracks on the tape were, there was some Bill Hicks stand-up, there was Ben Elton, there was Trevor and Simon, Alexi Sale, Emo Phillips, Pete and Dud, Arnold Brown, who I don't know, Larry Miller, who I don't know either, Joe Brand, and then there's John Cleese, Rowan Atkinson, Michael Palin and Terry Jones doing the Four Yorkshiremen sketch at the Secret Policeman's Ball.
I've got that. If you look up it, that was on a Rowan Atkinson compilation, and it's really good.
I think I've seen the Secret Policeman's Ball that it's on.
Yeah. Also, that really strikes home to me, a lot of those, because I still kind of do, comedy albums on tape. And I had some of the Ben Elton ones, so this must have been probably one that I had at the time. Yeah.
I think they were all Laughing Stock releases.
Yes.
It was like a Laughing Stock sampler.
A lot of the ones that I got were from Laughing Stock. If you actually go on their website, because they're still around, you can buy a lot of the tapes as digital downloads.
Yeah. There isn't, unfortunately, a way of doing that on Free With This Month's issue, because it wouldn't work, because it's not music, which is a shame, because it'd be an interesting one to talk about at some point.
Next up is an advert, and it's for the same Star Trek Next Gen figures as we saw last issue, and there are no other ads for the rest of the magazine, once again, with its mad inconsistency.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, because obviously, as we've said, they didn't know yet, but there were only 4 more issues after this.
Yep.
So, would it have helped them if they'd got more ads to help with revenue? Or could they not get the advertisers?
Yeah, that could have been a thing.
It's possible that they didn't have enough circulation, that the advertisers were like, well, it's not really worth us putting an advert in there.
Yeah. Right. These toys, right?
Yeah.
Because this is the second time we've seen this advert, maybe the third time we've seen this advert. I actually stopped and had a proper look at them rather than sort of scrolling over. The weapons are bizarre. Because you've got... Worf has what appears to be some kind of Klingon blade, which I'm pretty sure I've seen in some form of Star Trek.
It's a batleth.
Yes. Geordi LaForge appears to just have a stick. Riker.
That's not a traditional human weapon.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose it is, but not in next gen.
What the hell is Data
It
holding?
looks like a hookah.
It does.
I don't think it's a hookah.
And Riker and Picard have got lightsabers.
They're like light baseball bats, though.
Yeah.
They sort of go thicker at the other end.
Must not make knob gag.
How great would an episode of Star Trek been if they'd all got into a ruck with somebody else? It's like, right, lads, and instead of set phasers to stun, just run at them with sticks.
Well, then you've got the other picture where you've got the baddies, and you've got Garth Ferengi has got a what looks like he's ripped off the tentacle off an octopus to whip people with, he's not very nice to octopuses.
Also,
octopodes.
Borg is just known as Borg.
Octopus.
Jeff Borg.
Garth Ferengi, Barry Romulan, and Go Ron the Klingon.
Yeah. Also, Councillor Deanna Troi is available, but not in any of the pictures, which is bullshit.
It is bullshit. Next up is part 2 of From Hattie to Hilly to Holly, and it's basically a Hattie Hayridge interview where she talks some really lovely stuff, actually. Mm-hmm. How close the cast are is really nice to read, and that she came up with the swoon over Ace Rentmer.
Yes. I really loved learning that Hattie used to go on location, even when it was a bit where the crew were going somewhere without Holly. So she wasn't needed, but she'd just go along anyway because they all loved hanging out together. And there's a story she tells from Meltdown about the Gandhi lookalike, where the one that they actually ended up using was the second Gandhi lookalike, because the first one, when they needed him to do press-ups and some fairly energetic stuff, and he got there and he was so old he couldn't even get out of the car.
Yeah, I knew the Gandhi story, but I didn't know about Queen Victoria being a massive bellend.
Well, the Empire and all that is pretty much...
Just the idea of Ed By going, we need a fresh Gandhi. Someone go get me a fresh Gandhi.
Brilliant.
Somebody called Gandhis Are Us.
Yeah, it is lovely, this. I mean, in the way it's written in tone, it's very blatant that it's just the same conversation from the previous one chipped into 2. But it is lovely. One thing she said is she didn't like the costume when she was in Dimension Jump because she said it rooked up and didn't look good. I remember her looking fabulous in that episode. Also, the idea of her giving Craig Charles a lift up to the studio and him just being fast asleep in the car and just... it just seems like the buddy travel movie you never knew you wanted.
Oh, I definitely want that.
Yeah.
That sounds great. The other thing I clocked was we knew that there was quite a lot cut from Holoship because it had too much. And of course, it was the Holly scenes. That makes perfect sense. It's sad, but it's obvious.
Yeah. I'm sure somewhere on the internet someone's done the Holly cut, where they've put Holly back into stuff.
Have we seen the...
I was going to say, have the deleted scenes ever...
I've seen the deleted scene from Holoship, where she does the, hello, Arnold. It's in one of the making-ofs where she talks about being chopped out. So they played that bit, and I think it's in the 4th making-of where they show her what a guy. But she does look dead down the lens for it, and I think that's what got it cut down.
Right.
But yeah, it's a really nice article.
Yeah.
And the last one was great. They just chopped it into 2, really, didn't they?
Yeah. Which is fine. It was a good long interview.
Yeah. Next up is the Junior Encyclopedia of Space. There's very little worthwhile, but it was interesting to see that someone asked about Craig Charles's poetry, because obviously at this point it had been made quite a big deal of, and he hadn't released any. But I knew that because I've read his only book of poems, and it was released way after this.
And we also learn the very important fact that no, Craig Charles has never appeared in a Rice Krispies commercial.
That is very important.
Yeah. It is.
Next up is Read Any Good Books Lately? It's a pun. I like puns. And they cover a Quantum Leap novel and the Mary Whitehouse Experience Encyclopedia. Why? As much as I like the Mary Whitehouse Experience, how? Why? What?
Because it was the BBC and they used to have cash-in Christmas books.
No, but why are they covering it here?
Because it's comedy.
Could have been a slow month book-wise.
There's something mentioned on the letters page, I think, which we'll get to in a bit, where somebody's pointing out that it has all this sci-fi stuff, but it doesn't have much about comedy in there.
Yeah.
Where Red Dwarf is a comedy programme as well as a sci-fi programme, and both parts are just as important.
Also, at the time, the Mary Whitehouse Experience, from what I remember, was pretty big.
Oh, it was, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it as a kid, and I would really quite like to read that book. Okay, I'll buy that for $1. It probably does need more comedy coverage in this magazine, but it did stick out to me.
It sticks out because up until now, it has all been sci-fi, which is why, you've got all that news from the Omniverse stuff where I've been going, I don't care about Star Trek.
Yeah.
I don't care about Quantum Leap and stuff like that.
Good point.
Mary Whitehouse Experience, I care about. But yeah, with how big they were at the moment, this was probably a year or two before Newman and Baddiel were the first stand-up comedians to play Wembley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the thing is, I didn't watch the Mary White Experience much as a kid. I think I saw it a couple of times. But I loved, and I still love, in a way, Punt and Dennis.
Yes, same here.
Yes.
We're the same age. I think we were a little bit too young for Mary Whitehouse Experience. But I've gone back and watched loads of it on YouTube.
Yeah. And I had the video of Punt and Dennis live.
Yeah.
And I love anything pretty much that Hugh Dennis is in. I think he's incredibly funny and a very clever. Like when they do the Now Show, they've been doing the Now Show on Radio 4 for at least 20 years. It's just a really fun show. And Steve Punt, I think, is quite underrated in the things he's written on. He actually writes on the 10 Percenters, which was something we were talking about earlier, which is Grant and Naylor. So I'm really I'm interested to go back and watch the Mary Whitehouse. I can imagine some of it doesn't stand up, as a lot of it probably doesn't from the 90s, but
all the Robert Smith bits are brilliant.
Yeah.
I did watch the Mary Whitehouse Experience. I was going to say the stuff that I remembered, because I'm a smidge older than you, so I was watching it perhaps a little bit too early. So the stuff that stuck out was the very simple stuff like Robert Smith singing sad to happy songs, or Edward Colander hands, or Milky Milky. But there was a lot of really sophisticated stuff as well that, as a young kid watching the alternative comedy, I didn't really get. Watching it subsequently, as much as I like the stuff I remembered from being a kid, there's some really good shit in the Mary Whitehouse Experience.
Yeah. I remember a friend of mine, Darren. I used to stay at his house a lot when I worked in Derby but lived outside of Derby, so I used to finish work and have to crash on people's sofas and floors for a long time. He would always we'd get back in, I'd go sit in his living room, and he'd always put something on, and we ended up watching a Rob Newman DVD, and in it he does Jarvis. And
Jarvis is brilliant.
I love Jarvis. I just love the character, and I've probably ripped off the character in doing some voices before. I just love that debauched upper class bounder.
Bounder, good word.
It is.
Next up is Dead Man's Bluff, and it's great artwork. Again, it's
John Rushby.
Yeah, they've gone back to Rimmer being grey as well, which is nice because he is the focus of this particular story as well. And I really, really liked everything about it, except that he looked like Hitler in one of the frames.
Right.
Really, really looks like Hitler in one of the frames.
You're right. I've just found that one. He absolutely does.
Massively looks like Hitler.
I really like this strip. The big cyborg dude is basically Mean Machine Angel crossed with Terminator.
Yeah.
But John Rushby, the artist, mostly worked in Beano and the Dandy.
Really?
Yeah. Because the first thing I saw was that guy looks exactly like Mean Machine Angel. Did this guy write for 2000 AD? And no, he didn't.
I wonder if some of these people were trying out to try and get on 2000 AD.
I think they were. Yeah. I think they were.
I reckon so. The conclusion I thought was really sophisticated and worked really nicely. It was very kind of Red Dwarfy sci-fi feel, and I think this would have made a great episode, actually.
Yeah. I like the little details in this and the artwork, like when they first meet, Lister's got the shaving nicks on his face and he's got the toilet paper on him because he's about to meet a very attractive woman that turns out to be the computer as part of this cyborg, and Rimmer's got all of his medals and everything on. I do like this the motivation that the guy had for hating holograms, in that he tried to save his mother and none of this happened and it just sent him insane. There's that thing of the best villains are the ones that got a reason for it.
Right.
Yes, of course.
And this guy has a reason for why he hates holograms.
What's my motivation?
Exactly. I did notice where he's flashing back and he shows all the holograms marching down the street. The front one's Superman.
Is it?
Yeah. He's got the S on his chest.
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
That is definitely Superman.
Yeah. I didn't spot that.
It's very strange, but...
Perhaps he was also trying to audition for DC Comics as well.
Maybe.
Just failed entirely.
Oh, hold on. He's talking about Deadies. This was 1993.
Oh.
This is around about the Superman's Dead time, isn't it?
Fucking hell. You're absolutely right. That's a deep cut. Well spotted.
Yeah.
Wow. That's actually pretty cool.
I appreciate that even more now.
Yeah.
Next up is Year of the Cat, and it's about the release of Tongue-Tied, and there's some lovely Colin Howard art. Not just the front cover of the disc, which obviously we've seen because we've all, at least, seen it on Spotify, or at the time I owned it.
Yeah.
But there's also the concept art and the sketches, which I really, really liked being able to see. And let's move on from talking about Clayton Mark, fuck that guy. And, Colin, you'll know this, EMI are fucking massive, right?
Yeah, one of the biggest major record labels in the world.
Mad.
Yeah.
Mad that this little fucking British sitcom ended up on EMI, essentially.
Well, it was a big British sitcom at the time, wasn't it? It was very popular. Popular enough to have its own magazine, and then popular enough to have a podcast about it in the future.
True.
Yeah, there's a few things in this article that I thought were quite interesting. They're talking about all the corporate hoops that they've got to jump through to get the rights to do it. Like there's various different organisations they've got to go to get permission and that kind of thing. And then they mentioned that there was an original idea for the Red Dwarf theme tune was actually Danny John Jules singing with a brass section.
Yeah, I don't know if that had worked.
No. I'd be very interested to hear it.
Yeah. But again, I noticed the thing that he has to go through Noel Gay Productions to get everything. I can imagine it's very similar as if you're releasing a cover version, and that you've got to go to them, get the permission.
Yeah.
I noticed as well, he mentions Charles Armitage, who's still a producer on Red Dwarf to this day.
Right.
I'm sure he's turned up, because I have seen the Dave series. He does turn up in one of the makings of, talking about getting it back on the TV. So he's still there. So he's very intrinsically connected to it all. But yeah, it is fascinating that they shipped it around and EMI were like, yeah, pick it up. With that, because he got picked up by EMI, I'm surprised there wasn't any more releases, even if they were non-Red Dwarf ones.
Yeah. What's really weird is that in a previous issue, I can't remember which one, he was talking about how he was really ambitious about being a recording artist. And in this one, he says that music's a hobby. He's almost completely 180'd on it.
Maybe something happened that knocked his faith in how it was going to do.
So they've been hyping this up for months.
Yeah.
They're talking about it potentially being the Christmas #1 at one point. Which obviously, I mean, for a start, that didn't happen because it was released in October or November. So it was released. The EMI were never planning on it being the Christmas #1, because to do that, you release it 2 weeks before Christmas at the absolute earliest. So it was something like number 18 in the charts, I think it got to. So I think all of the original hype and then things not quite living. I think he was probably realising at that point that it might not be as big as everyone was hyping it up to be, and I think he's trying to sort of backpedal a little bit there.
Yeah.
It did feel like that.
Yeah, so that it doesn't look like a failure. Which it wasn't a failure, but it wasn't a massive hit success.
No.
I thought it was interesting at the end of it, they talked about a competition where you could win a night out with Danny John Jules, and it made me think that part of the video that we watched where he blatantly just takes a camcorder into a nightclub, is that the night out with Danny John Jules?
I think it is.
That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, he's like, oh, I know a model. No one knows a model. It's sort of, you're either involved with a model and don't want to publicly state it.
Yeah. And I think we've already talked about this, so let's not talk about it too much, but all this talk about the weird versions of the Red Dwarf theme that never surfaced.
Yeah, it says that one of the B-sides is going to be the Doctor Who mix, which
Definitely haven't seen that.
doesn't exist. It's not on any of the formats.
No. I mean, from our reaction when we did cover the Tongue-Tied and we heard like the Tabby Ranks and things like that, how bad must have that mix been for someone to have gone, lads, it's shit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the B-sides were fucking terrible.
Yeah. Well, wasn't it on vinyl that it did have the Red Dwarf theme tune sung by Danny John Jules? Yeah. Yeah,
there's different B-sides on the cassette, the vinyl, and the CD.
Tabby Ranks. It was so bad, that bloody B-side.
The CD, I can confirm because I owned it, was exactly what you saw on the promotional video. All of those versions were on the CD. Next up is the article on confidence and paranoia. It's the 5th of 6 kind of deep dives into Series 1, which I think they did to release alongside the VHS. And they talk about how they kind of changed the format of Red Dwarf, where they initially had like a bit of life aboard ship for 5 minutes and then the main plot line. And I'd never thought about it, but they're right. The first few seasons are like that, whereas later on, like 3 onwards, they get a lot in without doing that.
Yeah.
I kind of like that bit. You know, that's where you get the little chats with Holly, where a lot of the really good jokes that we end up quoting loads come from. And it's almost like a sort of cold open bit.
Yeah.
Have you watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
A little bit.
So Brooklyn Nine-Nine always starts with a little bit before the credits.
Yeah.
That's basically a sketch, and it's totally unrelated to the rest of the episode. And it's the same sort of thing. A lot of those little first 5 minutes you could watch as little standalone sketches.
And on YouTube they are.
Yeah.
There's a compilation of them. I've watched one. Yeah.
I think it explains, actually, why they struggle to find stuff for Hattie.
Yeah.
Potentially, yeah. Later on, the story's got a lot more complicated.
True.
Like we were saying earlier with Hollow Ship, where they didn't, they had to cut, like, about 10 minutes to fit everything in. When the stories got more complicated, they didn't have the time to have 5 minutes at the start, which would leave them with, like, only sort of 22 minutes to resolve everything.
Yeah. And I don't particularly want to over-egg this, but we talked about the cruelty to animals in this episode when we covered it on the podcast, and I call bullshit. I'm sorry. They are backtracking, and I don't believe for a second. We only dropped dead fish. We didn't do anything mean to living animals. Bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on that.
The 80s.
Yeah.
It's the 80s. No one's paying that much attention to what they do with fish.
Paul Jackson says in there, notice all the fish are alive and we haven't killed one. It doesn't sound convincing in any way, does it?
No, it doesn't. And none died. What you mean is none died, but lots of them were tortured because they weren't in fucking water. That's torture. That is basically asphyxiating a creature by taking it out of bullshit.
Yeah.
No cruelty to animals. My fat arse.
Oh, Mark, your arse isn't fat.
That's the point, isn't it? That my arse isn't fat. I lied. Like they lied in this article.
If anything, it's hurt.
I'm aware that my bottom is one of my greatest features, but that's because I've got an ugly face.
Oh,
Moving
Mark.
on. Moving on from that, which was obviously probably the most problematic thing outside of Crikey TV that we've done since Shipwrecked and Comatose started, I think. The Peter Ragg stuff about the spacesuit was great, but everything that has Peter Ragg's name on it in this magazine is fucking great.
That's what saved this for me, because the previous ones have been like, well, we already know that. With this one, having Peter Ragg go, well, here's what we did. I could listen to Peter or read about Peter Ragg explaining how he did stuff, especially on the budget they must have been on. You know, the BBC, not that great budget. Same with Bottom. He did so much stuff in Bottom that a lot of shows probably wouldn't have been able to do.
Yeah. They've got in there about Confidence's teeth were painted with luminous paint as well to make them extra white and shiny.
I mean, if you've seen Craig Ferguson now, his teeth are still bright.
Maybe he stole that pot of paint.
I don't think he's had them done since... Yeah.
Perhaps you can't get it off. It's just permanent paint.
I do enjoy Craig Ferguson. Obviously, he went to America and he became like, it's a great day for America, everybody. But he did a series called Hobo Fabulous, where he's touring around the country. And he's got a podcast out in the moment where he just talks about finding joy. And he's just a very positive person. He's really good fun. And his stand-up's good too. His stand-up's fun because he goes out and he does stand-up. He swears, he does adult jokes. And he has a part and he goes, oh yeah, I'm not on telly now. Listen to me say fuck. You know, he has a bit of fun with it. Yeah.
I'm also not on telly.
No.
They wouldn't let me on telly.
Yeah. I used to watch little compilation bits of Craig Ferguson's chat show, and it was always fun because he would have Doctor Who guests on all the time because he's a big sci-fi nerd. And so he'd have all sorts, like, especially if they were Scottish and he knew them. Like, he had Capaldi on a lot. And he used to do a thing called the Golden Harmonica. You can cut this out if you want, Mark. He used to do a thing called the Golden Harmonica where he would challenge people to play this harmonica. And if they could, they won it. It was an expensive one. And they had Ewan McGregor, who just played it like he's been playing since he was 2 years old. And Craig Ferguson just slams it down and walks off.
Wow. And the other thing in this article I thought was interesting, I don't think I knew this, was that Me Too was supposed to be episode 1 of series 2. They were supposed to have a cliffhanger of 2 rimmers.
Yes. I definitely knew that. I think we might have talked about it at the time.
Oh, did we? I must have forgotten. I've slept since then, to be fair.
I'd hope so, Mark. It was about 2.5 years ago.
And next up is a brief interview with Lee Corns, who played Paranoia. And whilst it's a bit of a stretch, I don't hate it. I thought it was quite interesting that he was nearly Rimmer. And, it's a nice little interview.
He's Mr. Hankin in Grange Hill is the main thing that he was known for. But also, I looked up some other things that he'd been in as well. He's been in The Young Ones, Blackadder Goes Forth. I've written The Young Ones twice. Perhaps he had 2 episodes of that. He's a trickster in Doctor Who. But some of the characters that he played, in Comic Strip Presents, he played a character called Arch Crippledick.
Oh, dear.
And in Bottom, he played a character called Dickhead.
He's the landlord at the Lamb and Flag.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, he fucking is as well.
Yeah.
Damn, you're right.
We all got 6 months last time. Yes.
Fucking hell.
The other pub's called the Dog and Handgun. Sorry.
He's also apparently in Phone Shop, which I've watched quite recently, and I didn't notice him, so I need to rewatch that and find him.
He's an interesting one, because he says in this, like, I get all these little, ugly, sniffly buggers, but he actually does play a lot of... I mean, in Bottom, when he's the barman, he's actually quite a bit of a... not hard man, but he's not this sort of disgusting creep, and he can play both. Like, I remember him in Grange Hill, and he's like a fine, upstanding member of the community. You almost feel bad for him that they kept... Because he's very short, from what I remember. that they just cast him in these kind of like characters. And he mentioned the Carling Black Label lads, Steve Frost and Mark Arden. And I remember those adverts.
Yeah.
I remember the detective show as well.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, they had like a spoof detective show. I can't remember what it's called, but I'm going to have a look, see if I can find it.
Next up is a profile of the Inquisitor, and it wasn't very good, but I did kind of laugh at his role models being Judge Death and the Terminator. That was quite clever.
It's filler, but it's not bad filler like some of the filler that we've had.
It's also relevant filler because the next article is Tomorrow Trouble, which is a comic strip that features the Inquisitor, so it's at least relevant.
I really like this cartoon.
Yeah, Tomorrow Trouble was a great comic strip.
Carl Flint on art again, so he's the same guy that did the Jake Bullet series that we had earlier on.
Did anybody else read The Inquisitor in hearing Jack Doherty's voice? Because I did. Which made it funnier for me, especially where he's like, now, where are the D's? Where he's scrolling through time. Yeah. I don't know why. I just hear it in his voice.
I like this because it's really meta and timey-wimey. Before timey-wimey was overdone.
Yeah.
I think this would have been quite innovative at the time, actually, rather than something that's a bit cliche.
And it's set in the distant future of 2034.
Yikes.
So 11 years away.
Well, with this government, it can only be happening soon. Well, a bit of politics.
The Inquisitor's a great character, so it's good to see him explored more.
Mm.
And then in this comic, you end up getting more and more as they keep travelling back in time and get a giant crowd of Inquisitors in the end.
I don't know what it was. There's the bit in it where there's only two of them, and they kill the guy by mistake. What one Inquisitor says to the other, "You're right. I'm sorry. I've been a fool." And I don't know what it is, but that to me brought up like Miriam's photo casebook. In that there'd always be someone go, "You're right, I'm sorry, I've been such a fool," because it doesn't seem right for the Inquisitor to say that. I don't know why. It might have been like when Viz parried it. Yeah,
I didn't think of that, Carl.
My brain's wired different. It really is. Yeah,
it is.
I like that it is though.
Yeah.
Next up is holograms, and stuff that is vaguely worth mentioning is that they seem to very much defend the Red Dwarf fan club, which, as it's a group of volunteers, I'm all for that.
There's the mention of the New Zealand one as well.
Yes.
Shift.
I was wondering if we can get a copy of Garbage Pod fanzine. Probably not.
I mean, there's an address
I think
there.
it might be very difficult.
Yeah.
Go for it.
There's also a chap called Andrew Maslin who likes the comic strips. About fucking time someone sings the praise of the comic strips in this. And a conversation about whether Smeg is short for Smegma.
Yeah.
Of course it fucking is.
I also noticed there's somebody there saying, "Oh, I sent my money in for the fan club, and I've not heard anything. I know you've changed address. Has my money disappeared? Why would you print this in the magazine?"
So that they could defend the fan club?
Well, yeah, but this seems a bit personal. Just like, where's my money?
Yeah. Well, it was a dickish letter, and they gave him a very reasonable and pleasant response. I quite liked that, actually.
Oh, and somebody confirmed me that you can buy James' last videos. There's a special.
Hooray. No.
No? Oh.
There's a letter from Ian Jackson from Didcot, which is the one that I sort of vaguely mentioned earlier, where he's saying that you've got news from the Omnizone about science fiction. Maybe it's time to have, a section where you talk about comedies like Hitchhiker's Guide, Blackadder, Monty Python, etc. Which I totally agree with.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see on our last run of 4 next year whether or not they pick up on that or whether or not they just don't quite have the time with what they've got left.
Yeah.
Next up is Red Dwarf, which, very much like last issue, really nice idea. Shame it's too short.
Well, this to me You know how sometimes you have the argument of, like, in a film or something, go, well, why didn't they just do this? And the answer being, because then it'd be a very short episode, or then it'd be a very short film. That's what Red Dwarf is. Hudson turns up, they just destroy him in the first 10 seconds, and then they go about their business.
Yeah. Again, like last time, I'm not massively keen on Red Dwarf.
No.
But the artwork of the explosion, where there are just, like, a foot, a hand, some eyes and some teeth in the middle of an explosion going fwoom. I like that.
Yeah. Next up is next month in the Smeg, and there's a picture of Gunman of the Apocalypse. Fucking spoilers, but we'll come back to that. There's also going to be a Grant Naylor interview, and there's a chance to win a night out with Danny John Jules, as we've previously mentioned.
I misread this initially because it's like, it's got 6 in Roman numerals, like Series 6! Exclamation mark, and I read this as Series 7? I was like, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Well, apparently Series 7, according to last issue, is going to be released in 1994.
Totally was as well. Yeah.
Jake Bullitt returns as well.
True.
Looking forward to that.
And in Androids, everybody dies, which I'm pretty sure you two are going to be happy about.
Yeah.
Good. Next up is Wizard of Wardrobe, which is a Howard Burden interview. He was the costume designer from Series 3 onwards. And, again, no surprises here. Interview with backstage staff, Mark likes.
Yeah.
It was a fun interview. It was very well done, very informative, but with our jaded 2023 eyes, it's stuff that obviously we already knew. But I can imagine in 1993, this is like, wow. This is really good behind-the-scenes thing. Also, Howard Burden, some of the greatest hair in the history of Red Dwarf.
It's a fantastic picture, isn't it?
And it's only got better with age.
Splendid hairdo.
It's matched only by his chin.
Yeah.
He's got a proper chin there.
And he's got a great voice. Why he didn't go into acting, like, who knows? Because he's got the look, he's got the hair, and he's got a good voice.
I take it he's in some of the behind-the-scenes bits then.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Because I couldn't hear his voice when I was reading the article.
He's a stand-in for Brian Cox when they're doing the medieval VR game. Brian Cox had gone home, so they dressed up Howard Burden.
I remember that being mentioned, yes.
Brilliant.
I looked up some other stuff that he's done more recently. You know, they did that absolutely terrifying Wurzel Gummidge remake.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
He designed that, which...
that's a bit of a miss.
Yeah, because that's just nightmare fuel. He did the 2019 War of the Worlds BBC series, which was really good.
Don't remember that.
He's worked on Doctor Who, Poldark, Whitechapel. And yeah, he completely changed the look of Red Dwarf. There's a bit where it's talking about the Rimmer suit where he's got the green with the hat sort of thing that they describe as the Captain Emerald suit. And it absolutely is. He looks just like a Captain Scarlet character, and I'd never realised that until then. But yeah, there's a bit in there where he's talking about how Meltdown was towards the end of the series when they were making it, and they'd already completely depleted the costume budget. And then he got told that he needed to get hold of Abraham Lincoln, Marilyn Monroe, Elvis, and Mother Teresa costumes. So he had to do that on a really limited budget, which you can't tell by watching it. So he's obviously a very clever man.
Yeah, I like the bit where he talks about making the Man Plus Lister from DNA, and the first words he says were, "Well, we had to be aware of the copyright."
Yeah,
you get a feeling that was. You hear it in some of the making of on the DVDs where he's asked about some of the more difficult stuff, and he's very sarky / passive aggressive about the things that he blatantly wasn't enjoying making, like the Rimmer puppets. But I think with this was one of those things where it's like, yes, marvellous, great, got to build it, copyright, free. It does show as well, is over the series he has got a really good knack of building something on very short notice. Like, he did the Riviera Kid outfit and it was like, there's no way in hell this is going to fit Danny, and he just puts it in, and John Jules comes out, and it's like it was tailored for him.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. This article covers Series 3 and Series 4, so we're going to get another one next month.
Yep.
Well, next month of the Smegazine, next year in the case of the podcast, where he covers 5 and 6, which I'm really looking forward to, because this was fascinating.
It's a big series for costumes, for 5 and 6.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next up is Androids, and after we've just talked about copyright with RoboCop, there's RoboGaz. It even looks like the video cover.
Yep. It says RoboGaz in basically the RoboCop font.
Yep.
But it's still Android, so meh.
And I thought that this broke RoboCopyright. My joke was funnier than anything has ever been in fucking Androids.
Yeah, fair. That's not hard, though. That is not a difficult bar to get over.
If that broke copyright, then he's Castares and his vertically challenged septet of Ionian eco-commandos, rumpy, pumpy, bang, bonk, hump, jump, and a bit of the other.
Yes,
I love that.
quite.
And I genuinely am enjoying Android. And the fact it is all building up of everybody's converging on a tower to take on the baddie. And they've already said, I get the feeling that the magazine knew it wasn't that particularly popular, that they've already said in the next issue, everyone's going to die.
I'm going to guess that.
And it's not even the last issue, the next issue.
Next up is a sneak peek of Red Dwarf 6, and holy fuck. Spoilerific photos, plot summaries that basically ruin it.
I thought, as this magazine goes, this was relatively spoiler-free.
Really?
They've spoiled a hell of a lot more stuff. Yeah, they don't. There's definitely bits in here where they are really deliberately not giving things away that they know. Been a lot worse in the past. Yes, there are pictures, but these are the same pictures that would have been released to the press, so would have been in Radio Times and stuff like that. Gunmen of the Apocalypse will have been in all of, you'd have seen them in their cowboy outfits in the trailers on the BBC leading up to it being shown. It's not telling you how that happens. It's not telling you how they get out of the situations. Yes, it tells you that Dwayne Dibley's going to be in it, but I think they were using that as you like this character before, look, he's going to come back kind of thing to get people in. I'm like you, Mark. I hate spoilers. When I'm watching something like Doctor Who, and at the end of the episode, it's got the spoilers of what happens next week, I race to the off button and switch it off before it shows you the preview of next week's.
I do that on literally everything, up to and including Drag Race.
Yeah. It's not that I don't care about spoilers. I absolutely do. But I think they've got to hype it up, and they've got to hype it up with what they've been given. And I think they still did a relatively good job in this, to be honest.
True, but the one thing that I think that really got me was they did a really subtle job of talking about C.P. Grogan when they interviewed her, and then they just shat on it by telling us exactly what she was doing.
Yeah, that's not good.
And one thing I did like about it was the seemingly quite a lot of integrity, where they talked about how people wanted the opposite of what they did with Holly, and they talked about how Legion's ending isn't great, and it did seem to be vaguely non-biased.
Oh yeah, definitely. Which is quite impressive considering how much access they are given by the BBC and Grant and Naylor. And it's almost like they're not scared to jeopardise that by criticising it. Some music magazines will, if they've got someone on the cover and they're reviewing their album that issue, they're not going to give them a bad review, even if the album's fucking terrible. And it's that kind of thing. It's like, potentially, if they totally slagged it all off, they could have had a situation where Grant and Naylor went, right, we ain't fucking giving you any, information for anything again.
Maybe that's what killed this magazine. Their integrity.
Potentially. I still think it's going to be circulation in the end.
Me too.
I think it's all down to the fact that the guy that ran the post office in Polesworth wouldn't let me buy it anymore, and that's why it, I was the one that was keeping it going. And then 9 issues after that, they were like, no more.
Yeah.
There's a bit in this where it says, for people who were disappointed by Series 5. Who was disappointed by Series 5? Series 5 is amazing.
Literally no one was disappointed by Series 5.
That really confused me.
Like Mark said, I like the balance. It said that Rimmerworld was bitty when they watched it, and then when it was edited, they think it's going to make more sense. They also point out, if you're a fan of Danny John Jules, you'd be really happy that the cat's got more character and things like that. But I just think it could have been shorter and with less spoilery bits in it, because it's good, but it gives away too much.
Yeah, I suppose I'm looking at it where I already know all of this stuff, so yeah, fair enough.
Next up is Mimer's Crossing Part 3, which is the utterly batshit comic strip that I love. And Colin, your post office guy was right to stop you from having this magazine, because it basically has the words fuck, shit in it, and definitely has the word bitch in it.
True. But also, what I really like about this is it's got the hopper taxis in it from the novel.
It's superb. It's superb.
Yeah. Also, there's a joke about guys getting huge shiny weapons all tooled up and they go off half-cocked, and she doesn't think a Kleenex will help. I think there's a reason this is at the back of the magazine. in the hope that kids might stop reading by this point.
Or in the hope that post office guys don't read that far before stopping kids from having it.
Yeah.
Next up is news from the Omnizone. Some highlights. Doc Dimension, the Doctor Who celebration story, has been scrapped. Patrick Stewart is done on Next Generation except for films, and that ended up being the entire series finishing. There's some stuff about Quantum Leap that I don't think actually happened. And at the very bottom, there is a picture of one of my favourite VHSs that I ever owned, the Doctor Who Dalek box set. I loved that because it had a pretty tin case.
Yeah, that is nice. Right. Yeah. Also, they're talking about some shows being revived, doing a reunion movie for I Spy. They're talking about doing The Man from U.N.C.L.E. again. And was it Lost in Space, destined for the big screen? Which it would be, but it takes another 6 years for it to get on with Joey from Friends. And also a Thunderbirds Next Generation, which I don't think happened.
I don't think that happened. And if it did, I'm glad I didn't see it.
There was a cartoon which was like Thunderbirds 2065 or whatever it was, which was more of an anime style. I remember watching that as a kid, but I think that had already been out by this point.
Yeah, and with The Man from U.N.C.L.E., I think this must have been about the sort of time that they were repeating it as well. Because I remember watching
I know the I Spy movie did happen, because I think it was called like I Spy Again, or something like that.
And the back cover is a poster which features the cat and Rimmer, and it's a bit of a crappy still. I don't get why the poster's so crap in this magazine.
This looks like a still from an outtake where Chris Barry's just looked down the lens because he's forgotten his line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crap. And that's it for issue 5 of volume 2 of this magazine. Colin, what was your fave thing in this particular issue?
I think it was Tomorrow Trouble, the Inquisitor cartoon. It's definitely going to be one of the cartoons, but I think I like that the most because I like the fact that it was exploring more about the Inquisitor.
Brilliant. Carl, what about yourself?
I think it's either that cartoon or the Dead Man's Bluff cartoon. I think I'll go Dead Man's Bluff. So we've got something different. Because I really enjoyed the art style on that, and I enjoyed the story behind it as well. I think it was really good. Although the Inquisitor one, when they all appear, they all do appear with a bamf, which is how Nightcrawler appears, and I loved that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll go Dead Man's Bluff to give it that recognition as well.
You won't fucking believe this. I had both Dead Man's Bluff and Tomorrow's Trouble as, like, I couldn't decide between the two.
It's because they're both great.
So you're going for the Dwayne Dibley one then?
I'll go for Mimer's Crossing. There we go. But I think that says a lot.
It's such a strong part of this magazine.
Yeah, and that's been very much our experience across the board since we started doing Smegazine episodes, that we've all just consistently and regularly sung the praises of the comic books because they're great.
They really are.
Colin, what was your least favourite?
News from the Omnizone. It had nothing for me in this one at all.
Fair. Carl?
Probably the Junior Encyclopedia. It sounds bad because we always say it. One of these ones. So I'm going to go with Red Dwarf, the Inquisitor bit.
Cool.
I know what it was meant to do, which is just to give everyone a quick refresh before the comic strip, but I don't think it was needed because they explain it in the comic strip as well who he is. So yeah, I'm going to go for the Inquisitor Red Dwarf bit. And it's not because it's bad; it's just because I think it's superfluous. It's a strong issue. This issue.
Yeah, and I don't think I actively hated anything.
No.
I wasn't particularly chuffed with Sneak Peek, and I agree with you on the Inquisitor one. I think just because I'm calling bullshit on it, I don't believe a word they're saying, I think I'm going to go for Confidence and Paranoia because they didn't own up to their animal cruelty.
Fair.
But it's, there wasn't really an article I actively hated in this issue.
Cool.
So, this is our last of our run for these 5, so we'll actually do proper social media shiite. Colin, where can people find you on the internet?
So, I've got 2 other podcasts, free with this month's issue, and We Dig Music. You can find them by searching for them on a podcast thingy. You can find me on Twitter at MogwifeFierceSatan. You can find me on Blue Sky as New Paths to Helicon.
Carl, where can people find you?
Well, I've actually switched over to Linktree in an effort to prove to certain members of this team that Linktree is very easy to set up and very quick.
Can't be asked.
I'm over on Linktree/I am Mr. Carl. And on there you can get links to all my socials. I've got links to this podcast, and I'm currently going through the rigmarole of uploading all of my old podcasts that I used to do to a archive, so I can actually have them up there for people to tune into. But I need to go through them because I'm pretty certain there's some stuff in the ones from the early 2000s that needs to be cut out.
If you're looking for me, it's at MarkAdamsHC on Twitter and Instagram, and maybe Blue Sky. I did have a look at Blue Sky, but I obviously haven't put anything on it. And I've put one post under MarkAdamsHC on, what was that other one? Threads?
Threads.
Don't like change. Don't like change.
I don't like change, but I don't like fascists more.
I don't like fascists either.
Podcast promoting is the only reason I'm still on Twitter, because a lot of the conversations around my, particularly We Dig Music, is on Twitter.
Yeah. Threads has been good for building up a new sort of followers and stuff, and there's a lot less bots and things like that. Blue Sky's very slow, but I think that's for the real grifters to get themselves a full audience on there. But yeah, Twitter sadly is a necessary evil at the moment for promotional purposes.
I'm really delighted you decided to have a 2-minute conversation about which social media is the best. And we've been calling it Twitter, and apparently it's X because Elon Musk is a cunt. And I've got another podcast. It's about the Chucky and Child's Play stuff. So if you like killer dolls and tenuous links to Child's Play, because I do exactly the same thing there as I do here, at Chucky Vision on Twitter. And like Colin says, search for it wherever you listen to Shipwrecked and Comatose. Search for Chucky Vision, you can find that shit. So thank you so much for joining us for this 5-day run of Smegazine shite. And if you're still listening, we really love you. Thank you very much. And until next month with Christmassy shit.
Something witty for the end of the episode.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This Podcast network. Welcome to Make It So, a Star Trek Legacy podcast. Engage your warp cores and get ready to embark on a thrilling journey through the depths of the 24th and 25th centuries. Have some fun on the Cerritos. Join the Enterprise D crew. Take a trip with Star Trek Voyager. Take some lessons on the Protostar, or even relax on Deep Space Nine. With Make It So, we pay homage to the rich legacy of Star Trek, celebrating its enduring impact on popular culture and its profound influence on science fiction as a whole. We honour the vision of Gene Roddenberry and the countless writers, actors and creators who have brought this incredible universe to life. So join us as we navigate the cosmic expanse of the final frontier, engage in lively discussions, dissecting episodes, analysing characters, and sharing our love for everything Star Trek. Whether you are a lifelong fan or just beginning your voyage, this podcast is for you. It's time to embark on a journey where the stars are our guides, where the impossible becomes possible, and where the spirit of exploration knows no bounds. Welcome aboard Make It So, the Star Trek Legacy podcast that will transport you to new frontiers and ignite your passion for the future. Make it so.